Maria gently pulled aside the dusty curtain of the small diner, letting the first rays of morning sunlight spill into the narrow room. The wall clock had already struck 7, but the street outside was still quiet. At this hour, there were usually only a few laborers who stopped by for a quick bowl of hot soup before heading off to work. At 23, Maria was all too familiar with such silence. Ever since her father passed away early, the entire family had depended on her slender shoulders. Her mother was gravely ill, bedridden, and the cost of medicine consumed what little income they had. Her younger brother, only 14, was bright and eager to learn, yet the monthly tuition felt like a burden that grew heavier with each passing day. Maria had no choice but to work from dawn until late at night, sometimes waiting tables, sometimes washing dishes, and on other days taking cleaning jobs just to make ends meet. The old apron around her waist was faded and stained with oil. With a weary sigh, Maria wiped her calloused hands on it out of habit. She had no time to think of herself. She only knew she had to keep working, had to stand strong for her mother, for her brother. She let her gaze wander outside, and there he was again, a familiar figure in the scene. A man sat in an old wheelchair, his frame gaunt, his beard unkempt. His clothes were tattered, making him look even more haggard. He usually sat silently at the corner of the street in front of the diner, but his eyes were different. In them lingered both shame and the undeniable hunger that anyone could recognize. Passers-by rarely stopped. Some avoided his gaze, as if dodging a stain. Others threw him mocking words or a few spare coins, as though tossing scraps. Maria had witnessed many such scenes. Once, a drunk had splashed dirty water at his feet, muttering, "Useless." Yet the man had only endured it quietly, without complaint, without retaliation. Each time Maria saw him, her heart ached. She knew too well the feeling of being abandoned by the world, the helplessness of being hungry, with no hand reaching out. That was why, though she herself had little, she could never bring herself to ignore him. Today was no different. As she prepared breakfast for a few regular customers, Maria quietly set aside an extra portion, a plate of eggs, some bread, and a cup of warm milk. She packed it into a paper box and stepped outside. The man in the wheelchair lifted his head at the sound of her footsteps. "You must be hungry," Maria said softly, setting the meal in front of him. For a brief moment, his eyes lit up, but they quickly dimmed again, as if embarrassed to accept help. His voice was raspy, yet still youthful. "Why do you always help me? You don't have much yourself." Maria smiled, a gentle, steady smile. "Because I know what hunger feels like, and I believe no one deserves to face it alone." He bit his lip, his hands trembling as he accepted the box. "Thank you. Truly, thank you." Maria only nodded lightly and turned back to the diner, continuing her work as if nothing unusual had just happened. But inside the man, emotion surged. Behind his ragged appearance was Henry Grant, 26, heir to the immense fortune of the Grant family, one of the nation's most powerful conglomerates. After a devastating accident and betrayals from those closest to him, Henry had chosen to abandon the glittering life and live as a pauper, searching for an answer. Was there anyone in this world still willing to give kindness without expecting something in return day after day? Henry sat there silently observing. He saw countless faces pass by, saw the indifference and disdain of the crowd. But Maria, the poor waitress, was different. Not a single day passed without her bringing him food, even when she herself went without lunch. Henry wondered what gave such a young woman burdened with hardship the strength to keep such a kind heart. Each time he received food from her fragile hands, he felt both sorrow and admiration, and deep within him, a different feeling had begun to take root. The days that followed brought Maria no relief. Her meager wages barely covered the towering expenses. Each month, she struggled to balance her brother's tuition, her mother's medication, and the rent for their tiny apartment. It felt as though life itself was trying to corner her, with no way out. Yet no matter how exhausted she was, Maria never once forgot to set aside a portion of food for the man in the wheelchair. That afternoon, as she carried out a bowl of hot soup, he studied her intently before speaking softly. "Maria, you don't have to keep doing this. I don't want to be a burden to you." She let out a small laugh, setting the bowl before him. "A burden? I'm only sharing a little. I've known what it feels like to be hungry, to be left behind. If I can help someone else avoid that, I'll never regret it." He was silent for a long moment, then said quietly, "You're kinder than most people I've ever met." Maria arched a brow. "You've met a lot of people, have you?" He hesitated, his gaze drifting somewhere far away, before he deflected. "Well, a few." From then on, a rhythm began between them. Every morning and noon, Maria brought him food. Sometimes they exchanged a few short conversations. Maria would talk about the diner, about her dream of seeing her brother attend university, while he mostly listened in silence. One day, when she coughed harshly from a cold, he frowned with concern. "Do you ever rest? You look so pale." Maria gave a faint smile, pulling a thin scarf tighter around her neck. "If I rest, who pays the rent? Who buys medicine for my mother or covers my brother's school fees? I can't afford to stop." His fists clenched, and his eyes betrayed a helplessness he could not voice. If only he could reveal who he truly was. One snap of his fingers could erase every struggle weighing her down. But Henry kept his silence. He wanted to keep watching, to truly understand Maria before taking any action. Meanwhile, whispers began to spread around town. "That foolish waitress. What's the point of feeding a beggar? Maybe she's hoping he'll repay her with affection." Ha, dream. On what could a cripple possibly offer? Maria heard it all, but she never let it settle in her heart. She had long grown used to scornful stares. The only thing that mattered to her was whether the man would have a proper meal tomorrow. That evening, when Maria returned to their small apartment, she found the landlord waiting at the door. His arms were crossed, his tone cold. "Maria, you owe 3 months' rent. If you don't pay by tomorrow, I'll lock the place and throw your family out." Maria froze, her heart sinking. She knew she didn't have a single coin left to scrape together. Her mother's medicine had swallowed everything. That night, she sat silently beside her mother's bed, watching her brother sleep soundly, while tears rolled down her cheeks. The next morning, though her eyes were swollen red from sleeplessness, Maria arrived at the diner on time. She let no one see the desperation gnawing inside her, and as usual, she brought out a meal for Henry. He looked up as she handed it over. This time, however, his eyes weren't calm. They pierced through her, as though they could see the pain she tried to hide. "Are you all right?" he asked gently. Maria forced a smile. "I'm fine, just the same as always." But Henry didn't look away. He saw her frail shoulders trembling, her cracked hands clutching the food container a little too tightly. And in that moment, he realized the truth Maria was carrying, far more than he had imagined. He drew a deep breath, his voice unsteady yet firm. "Maria, there's something I need to tell you." She blinked, startled, her heart thudding. "What is it?" He straightened in his wheelchair, his gaze suddenly lit with an unfamiliar resolve. I'm not just some poor cripple sitting outside this diner. The truth is, Henry faltered, his hands curling into fists, I have another identity. And soon, you'll understand. Maria's eyes widened confusion, flickering in her chest. But before she could ask, Henry gave a faint, almost sorrowful smile. Just trust me. This once, will you? She said nothing, but in his eyes, she glimpsed something extraordinary. Not the look of a beggar, but of a man who had walked through despair and yet still held on to his pride. That night, Maria lay awake, Henry's words echoing in her mind. I'm not just a poor cripple. She didn't know if she should believe him. But one thing she was certain of, the man in the wheelchair was unlike anyone she had ever met. And from that moment on, Maria's heart began to beat to a new rhythm, one filled with curiosity, with worry, but above all, with a fragile hope that perhaps, just perhaps, her life was about to change. The next morning, Maria returned to the diner in a state of half-belief, half-doubt. Henry's words from the night before still haunted her. She placed a steaming bowl of porridge before him, forcing a smile. Here, your usual. But this time, you have to tell me the truth. Who are you, really? Henry sat in silence, his eyes fixed on the steam rising from the bowl, as though he were battling himself. At last, he let out a long sigh and began to speak. Maria, 3 years ago, I was a young entrepreneur. People called me the reckless genius because I invested in things no one else dared to touch. My company grew at lightning speed. But then he paused, his lips pressed tight. I had an accident. Maria leaned forward slightly, her eyes widening. An accident? A car crash. He nodded. Yes, a terrible collision. I lost the ability to walk. Worse still, the people I once trusted as partners seized the chance to betray me and take everything. I went from standing at the peak of success to falling into the abyss overnight. Everyone vanished. All that remained was this broken body. A heavy silence settled between them. Maria felt her throat tighten. Sitting before her was no longer just a nameless beggar, but a man who had once lived in dazzling light and been cast mercilessly into darkness. Henry lifted his gaze, his eyes glowing strangely bright. I'm not lying. I was Henry Alcott, CEO of Alcott Innovations. Maria gasped. That name, she had read it in the papers. A rising star in the world of startups just a few years ago. You're really Henry Alcott, she stammered. Henry gave a faint, bitter smile. That name doesn't mean anything now. But yes, that used to be me. Maria clenched her hands around her apron. She remembered those headlines. The brilliant young billionaire who suddenly vanished after a mysterious accident. No one knew if he was alive or dead. And now, here he was, sitting right in front of her. She fell silent for a long while, Henry's every word echoing in her mind. Finally, she whispered, So, you don't need these small meals from me. You could say just one word and people would rush to take care of you. Henry shook his head, his eyes shining with sincerity. No, Maria, you don't understand. I needed to know if there was anyone in this world who could see me for who I am, not for my money or reputation. When you brought me soup, a box of food, I realized there is still one person who doesn't treat me like garbage. You don't know how you saved me from the darkest place. Maria's heart trembled. His words struck her deeply. But why stay silent all this time? She asked softly. His reply was hoarse, but steady. Because I was afraid. Afraid that if you knew who I was, you would change. afraid of losing the rare honesty I found in you. Maria lowered her gaze, her cheeks burning. She was not the type to believe in fairy tales, yet there was no trace of deceit in his voice. It was so raw, so genuine, that she couldn't dismiss it. That day, for the first time, Henry truly opened his heart. He told Maria about the long nights of despair when he wanted to give up, about the searing betrayal of friends, the partners who turned their backs, and the physical agony of knowing he would never walk again. Maria listened quietly, her chest tightening with every word. She had never imagined that a man once perched so high could endure such crushing loneliness. When his story ended, Maria gently laid her hand on his. "Henry, I don't care who you were or how much money you had. To me, you're still the man in the wheelchair I bring food to every day. You're still the friend I respect." Henry froze, emotion flooding his eyes. He pressed his lips together, trying to hold it back, but tears blurred his vision nonetheless. That night, as Maria walked home, her heart felt strangely light. Henry was no longer a mystery. He was a flesh and blood man, scarred and battered, but still burning with resilience. She told herself, perhaps fate brought us together, a poor waitress and a fallen billionaire. And in that instant, Maria realized something new. She was afraid of losing Henry, just as he had once lost everything. In the days that followed, the distance between them dissolved. Henry began sharing with her the ideas he had once left unfinished, the projects he had dreamed of. Whenever he spoke of them, his eyes lit up like a flame, long buried but reignited. Maria, instead of only listening, started offering her thoughts. She had no training in business, but she had the raw honesty of someone who had known hardship. And strangely, Henry found her insights precious. One afternoon, he chuckled and said, "Maria, do you know I've had countless experts spend hours with me in boardrooms, yet none of them ever spoke to me as honestly as you do." Her cheeks flushed as she murmured, "That's because I have nothing to lose. I just say what I feel is right." He looked at her for a long time, then whispered, "And that's exactly why I trust you." Late at night, Maria sat by her apartment window, watching silver moonlight spill over the street. A strange feeling welled inside her, part fear, part anticipation. Henry was no longer just the man in the wheelchair. He had become an essential part of her days, a reason for her to keep pushing forward. And Maria knew then that their story was no longer just about shared meals, but about a destined journey where kindness would guide them toward love. Day by day, the bond between Maria and Henry grew so naturally that even they were surprised. Every morning, Maria still brought him food, but the air between them had changed. They were no longer just a poor waitress and a crippled beggar, but two kindred spirits who shared everything from small daily matters to lofty dreams. Henry had become less silent. He began to smile more often, his eyes lighting up whenever Maria stepped out the door with a lunchbox in hand. Sometimes he told her about new technology, ideas about ways to transform business models. Maria didn't understand everything, but she listened with all her heart, and Henry realized that what he needed wasn't another expert, but someone who believed in him. One late afternoon, after the diner had emptied, Maria pulled up a chair and sat beside Henry on the porch. The setting sun cast its light on his face, stretching the shadow of his wheelchair long across the sidewalk. "Do you ever wish you could go back to how things used to be?" Maria asked, her eyes gazing into the distance. Henry was silent for a long moment before quietly replying, "Yes." But then I realized, maybe fate knocked me down so I could learn how to rise in a different way. Back then, I had everything, yet no one stayed when I lost it all. And now, with nothing left in my hands, at least I know there's someone truly by my side. Maria instinctively turned to him and met his deep gaze. Her heart pounded so wildly that she had to quickly look away, hiding her flushed cheeks. Meanwhile, Maria's own life was still full of hardship. The landlord kept pressuring her for rent, and her mother's medical bills piled up higher each day. One night, as Maria finished her shift, he was waiting outside the diner. "If you don't have the money tomorrow, you and your family are out." His cold voice rang. Maria could only bow her head, her hands trembling. She didn't dare tell Henry. She was afraid he would think she was trying to take advantage of his kindness. But Henry noticed. The next day, when he saw the dark circles under her eyes, he gently asked, "You're not okay, are you? Tell me what's wrong." Maria bit her lip, shaking her head. "It's nothing. I can handle it." Henry sighed, his gaze firm. "Maria, don't treat me like a stranger. You shared food with me when I was at my lowest. Do you think I'll just sit back and watch you fall apart?" His voice carried such determination that Maria couldn't hide anymore. She told him about the overdue rent tears spilling before she could stop them. Henry listened silently, then took her hand and squeezed it tightly. "Don't worry, I won't let you lose your home." Maria wanted to protest, but when she looked into his eyes, she saw a strange, unwavering strength. Her heart trembled as if it longed to lean on him. As time passed, Henry became an inseparable part of Maria's life. He didn't just bring comfort, he sparked within her a new belief, a fragile but real hope in the future. One moonlit night after closing the diner, Maria wheeled Henry to the nearby riverside. They sat together, the cool breeze brushing past. Henry, Maria whispered softly, "If one day you regain everything, will you still remember me?" Henry turned, the moonlight reflecting in his eyes like silver streams. "Maria, I'd rather lose it all again than lose you. Do you understand?" His words left Maria stunned. Her heart raced, her lips parted, but no sound came. In that moment, she knew the feelings she had long tried to deny had blossomed into love. But life never stays peaceful for long. One afternoon, as Maria was cleaning the diner, a luxury car stopped right at the entrance. From it stepped a young woman, elegant, proud, exuding wealth. She glanced around before her eyes landed on Henry. "Henry, oh my God, it really is you," she exclaimed, rushing toward him. Maria froze, her heart tightening painfully. Henry looked at the woman, his expression flickering. "Isabella," he whispered, his voice laced with surprise and caution. Maria stood motionless, her chest constricting. She didn't know who this woman was, but the way she called Henry's name filled her with dread. Henry blinked and turned toward Maria, about to explain. But Maria quickly turned away, hiding the tears that had begun to fall. Inside her, a cruel question echoed. What am I in his life? Just a poor waitress? Could I ever stand beside a man who was once a billionaire? The air inside the small diner thickened after that name was spoken. Maria turned her back, pretending to keep wiping down an empty table, but her trembling hands could barely hold the cloth. Her heart pounded wildly, aching, confused. Isabella, the elegant woman with shining high heels, hurried straight toward Henry. Her eyes glittered as though she had just recovered a lost treasure. "Henry, you've been gone for so long, you drove me insane. Not a single call. Not one message. I thought you had. Her voice broke, her eyes shimmering with tears. Henry frowned, caught off guard. He had never expected Isabella to find him here. His eyes revealed a storm of emotions, surprise, guilt, but certainly not the joy of reunion. Isabella, he spoke at last, forcing his voice steady. You shouldn't have come here. The words sliced through the air like a blade. Isabella froze, her lips parted, but speechless. Maria bit down hard on her lip. Isabella. That name. Then it struck her. She remembered old articles about Henry Alcott that mentioned Isabella Collins' daughter of a powerful conglomerate partner, rumored once to be his undisclosed fiancé. The rag slipped from Maria's hand and fell to the floor. A suffocating ache swelled in her chest. Henry saw Maria quietly hurry into the kitchen, her small frame disappearing from sight. His heart sank. But before he could call after her, Isabella clutched his arm. What else can you possibly say? You vanished without a word. I searched everywhere for you. My family, too. Do you even know what people are saying? That you died? That you lost your mind? You let them think that. Henry's grip tightened on the armrest of his wheelchair, his expression darkening. He drew a deep breath, then said firmly, I didn't die. I just no longer wanted to live in that world. Isabella's eyes widened in disbelief. What are you talking about? You're Henry Alcott, the heir, the leader. Hundreds of people are counting on you. You can't abandon it all because of a few wounds and a shock. Henry raised his gaze, his eyes turning cold. Not just a few wounds, Isabella. It was betrayal, and I lost faith in everyone around me. When I fell, no one stayed, except one person. His eyes drifted unconsciously toward the kitchen, where Maria had vanished. Isabella immediately noticed. For a moment, confusion flickered across her face before it hardened into a faint, mocking smile. So that's it. A poor waitress changed you, Henry. Are you serious? You could have anyone in high society, someone worthy of you. But her... Isabella shrugged, her tone dripping with disdain. Do you really think she can understand? You carry your burdens? Henry's voice cut sharp. Enough, Isabella. You will not insult Maria. Isabella froze. For the first time, she saw in Henry's eyes a steel resolve, stronger than anything he had ever shown her in business debates. Inside the kitchen, Maria leaned against the wall, silent tears streaming down her cheeks. She had heard every word. Her heart warmed because Henry defended her, yet, at the same time, it ached, reminding her of the vast distance between their worlds. She whispered to herself, Maria, you're just a poor girl. Stop dreaming. But just then, a voice called from outside. Maria, come out. It was Henry. He had left Isabella behind and moved toward the kitchen. Maria quickly wiped her tears, forcing a smile, as she stepped out. What is it, Henry? She asked, her voice trembling. Henry looked straight into her eyes, as though to burn away every doubt. I need you to believe one thing. You matter to me more than that past, more than everything I once had. Maria shook her head, trying to hide her fragility. Don't say that. I don't want to be a burden. I know. You belong to a world I'll never reach. Henry took her hand and held it tight. No, Maria. That world means nothing without you. I already lost everything once. And it was you, not Isabella, not anyone else, who made me want to rise again. This time, Maria couldn't stop the tears. In that fleeting moment, class, wealth, and status seemed to vanish, leaving only two hearts beating as one. From the doorway, Isabella watched, biting her lip until it bled. Hurt and fury flickered in her eyes. She spun on her heel and stormed out, the staccato of her heels echoing like a drumbeat, heralding an oncoming storm. Henry knew the turmoil was far from over. Isabella's appearance meant his old world had finally traced him here, and that world could drag Maria into its dangerous orbit. He looked at her love and worry, flooding his chest. I have to protect her, even if it means standing against the entire world I left behind. The days after Maria's mother was admitted to a better hospital marked a clear change in her life. Henry had arranged everything perfectly, from the best doctors to a comfortable room. For the first time in many years, Maria saw a spark of hope shining in her mother's eyes. One afternoon, after finishing her shift at the hospital, Maria stepped out into the courtyard. The sunset painted the rows of trees in golden light. A gentle breeze swayed the leaves, and there she saw Henry, sitting on a stone bench, waiting. This time, he was no longer in tattered clothes, with a frail appearance, but a young, elegant man in a simple shirt. How long have you been here?" Maria asked nervously, her heart beating faster when his eyes met hers. Henry smiled, a warm but slightly shy smile. "I just arrived. I wanted to make sure you got home safely." Maria sat down beside him, her hands twisting lightly together. Silence lingered for a few seconds, broken only by the rustle of leaves. "Maria," Henry finally spoke, his voice deep but slightly trembling. "Do you know why I chose to stay here instead of going back to my work right away?" She turned to him with a questioning look. "Why?" He took a deep breath. "I've met so many people, wealthy ones, powerful ones. Everyone always wants to take something from me. But you're different. You give without expecting anything in return. That touched me more than I ever imagined." Maria lowered her face, her cheeks flushing pink. She had never heard words like this from a man, especially from someone just a few years older, who now looked at her with such earnest eyes. "Henry, she hesitated. "I only did what I thought was right, not because I wanted anything back." "I know," Henry interrupted, his gaze brightening. "That's exactly why my heart can no longer stay still. I want to be by your side, Maria." Those words rang like a bell in her heart. Maria looked up, meeting his sincere gaze, no longer the distant eyes of a billionaire toward a poor waitress. Her heart raced wildly. The words of refusal stuck in her throat, partly because she felt unworthy, but also because deep down, Maria had already let Henry into her heart long ago. She just hadn't dared to admit it. "Henry," her voice trembled. I don't know what I can give you. I'm just an ordinary girl with nothing at all." He gently took her hand, giving it a light squeeze. "You've already given me the most precious thing, a sincere heart. To me, that's enough." In that moment, as the sunset faded, Maria's heart began to glow with light. News about Henry spread across the town as swiftly as the wind. The man who once sat in a shabby wheelchair, unshaven, outside a diner, was suddenly revealed to be a young billionaire, handsome and charismatic. People whispered and gossiped from the cafe at the alley's entrance to the small market at the far end of the street. And when the rumors reached Maria's ears, she could only lower her head, hiding her unease. One evening, after Maria finished cleaning the tables at the diner, Henry came to pick her up. He stood there, leaning casually against the old wooden door, a mischievous smile on his face. "Take a walk with me." Maria hesitated. She knew that just stepping outside with him would draw dozens of watchful eyes. But Henry's gaze was so gentle that she couldn't bring herself to say no. They walked together along the riverside road. Golden lights shimmered on the water's surface. Maria spoke softly, her voice tinged with worry. "Henry, aren't you afraid of what people will say about you and me?" He stopped, looking deeply into her eyes before letting out a quiet laugh. "I've never let others decide matters of my heart. They can talk, they can gossip, but only I know what makes me happy." Maria's face turned red. Her heart beat so fast it felt almost audible. Still, the unease inside her refused to fade. "But I'm just a poor waitress. You belong to a different world." Henry stepped closer, the space between them shrinking to just a breath. His voice was low and resolute. "You are the world I choose. And if you'll allow me, I want to step into it, no matter what hardships await." Maria froze, torn between fear and the stirring emotions inside her. Just then, a night breeze swept by, carrying the distant laughter of passers-by. "Look, a billionaire and a waitress. How ridiculous." Her chest tightened, but Henry remained calm, holding her hand firmly, unfazed by the prying eyes around them. "Let me handle my world," he whispered. "You just need to be yourself." In that moment, Maria felt it clearly. She was no longer alone. Yet she also knew that the road ahead would be anything but easy. After many weeks together, Henry made a decision Maria had never dared to imagine. He would take her to meet his family. The news made her heart tremble with both fear and anxiety. She knew well that the family of a billionaire would not easily accept a poor waitress. Yet Henry's unwavering gaze made it impossible for her to refuse. That day, Maria wore the simplest dress she owned, a plain white dress, old but clean and neat. She looked at herself in the mirror, her hands trembling slightly. "Do I really have a place in his world?" she wondered. Henry arrived in a sharp, black suit. Looking at Maria, he smiled with pride. "You don't need to be anything but yourself. Remember, I chose you, not because of your status, but because of who you are." Henry's family mansion was magnificent and imposing, a world entirely different from Maria's small, humble life. The grand doors, the paintings on the walls, the sparkling chandeliers, everything made her feel out of place. That evening's small gathering included Henry's parents and a few relatives. The moment Maria stepped inside, curious and scrutinizing eyes turned toward her. Evelyn, Henry's mother, set her glass of wine on the table, her gaze sharp as ice. "Henry, this is—" He held Maria's hand firmly and replied without hesitation, "This is Maria, the woman I love." The room fell silent. Then Evelyn's cold voice cut through. "Love. You say you love a poor waitress, Henry? Do you realize you're disgracing the family's honor?" Maria lowered her head, her heart tightening painfully. She wanted to pull her hand away to disappear, but Henry only gripped her hand tighter, his eyes unyielding. "What honor is there if it isn't tied to sincerity, Mother? I don't love Maria because of wealth or status. I love her because of the heart she carries." A cousin scoffed, interrupting, "A heart? Can a heart pay the bills or protect the family company?" Maria bit her lip, her eyes brimming with tears. She had never felt so small, but Henry turned to face his family, his voice resolute. "I don't need a wife to pay bills. I need someone to share life with. And I've chosen Maria." The air grew suffocatingly tense. Evelyn suddenly stood, her tone sharp. "If you insist on this, then from now on, take care of your own life. Don't expect this family to support you any longer." Maria panicked, squeezing his hand. "Henry, stop. I don't want you to lose your family because of me. But he turned to her, his gaze tender. I've lost nothing, because I've found you. In Maria's eyes, then, there were both tears and a glimmer of light. She knew the road ahead would be stormy, but she also knew Henry would never let go of her hand. News that Henry, the young billionaire, had gone public with his relationship with a poor waitress spread through society like wildfire. Headlines blared, and social media overflowed with mocking, scornful comments. Surely she only wants his money. It's a fairy tale script. But real life never works that way. A billionaire and a waitress. Ridiculous. Maria read those lines on her phone screen, her chest tightening. She collapsed onto the work table, her shoulders trembling. Never in her life had she been looked at with such contempt, not for being poor, but for daring to step into a love that seemed not meant for her. One afternoon, Henry came by. He stepped into the diner and immediately saw Maria bent over cleaning, avoiding his gaze. "Maria, are you okay?" he asked, worried. She froze, her eyes red-rimmed. "Henry, I can't stand it anymore. They say I'm after his money, that I'm using you. They even drag my family into their insults." Henry crossed the room and gripped her hand. "Ignore them. They don't know the real you. I'm here, I believe in you, and that's what matters." Maria pulled her hand away, shaking her head, her voice choked. "No, Henry, you don't understand. You were born into wealth and dazzling lights. I'm just someone who works hard. I can't bear this pressure. I'm not worthy of you." Henry's heart felt like it was being squeezed. He looked at her pained. "Do you think I care about worthiness? I only want you. I chose you, Maria. But what about your family? The public opinion? I don't want you to lose everything because of me," Maria cried, turning her face away. Henry came up behind her, his voice trembling, yet firm. "I can lose the company, the fortune, even my family. But if I lose you, I lose the whole meaning of my life." Maria bit her lip. Tears streamed down her face. Her heart ached, wanting to believe him, yet terrified of the harsh reality. For the first time, the invisible distance between them felt painfully clear. She looked back at Henry, eyes full of tears. "I need time. Please let me think." Henry fell silent. For the first time, he had no immediate answer. He nodded slightly, his voice low. "I will wait. No matter how long, I will wait." But when Henry left the diner, his heart was heavy, and Maria sat with her face buried in her hands, feeling as if her heart might break. In the days following that conversation, Maria almost completely avoided Henry. She turned off her phone, ignored his messages, and never dared to go to the places where he usually waited. All her time was poured into working at the diner and caring for her mother in the hospital. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't stop the gossip. Some customers came to the diner only to stare at her, snickering, throwing out bitter remarks. "Oh, so this is the waitress who hooked a billionaire. Guess she's about to strike it rich, huh?" Maria pressed her lips tightly together and quietly kept wiping the tables as if she hadn't heard. But inside, every word cut like a knife. One evening, the diner closed later than usual. Maria stayed behind to clean up alone because her coworker had taken the night off. When she stepped into the narrow alley out back to throw away the trash, the darkness wrapped around her, eerie and silent. Suddenly, two men appeared at the end of the alley, blocking her way. The stench of alcohol clung to their breaths. "Well, isn't this the famous waitress from the papers these past few days?" one sneered. "That's right. Guess tonight we get to spend some time with the billionaire's girlfriend," the other added crudely. Maria's face went pale. She clutched the trash bag, tight, backing away, step by step. "Please, move aside. I just want to go home." But the two men drew closer, their eyes glinting with malice. Maria's legs trembled, her heart pounding wildly. She turned to run, but a rough hand seized her arm. "Let go!" Maria cried, struggling desperately. At that very moment, a voice rang out, firm and commanding. "Let her go! Now!" Maria's head snapped up to see Henry at the mouth of the alley. He wasn't in a polished suit this time, just a rolled-up shirt, but his burning gaze made the men hesitate. "Oh, so this is the billionaire," one scoffed. "You think you can buy this street too?" Henry strode forward, each step steady and unshaken. He pulled out his phone, dialing swiftly, his voice like ice. "If you don't want the police here in 5 minutes, you'd better disappear." The two men exchanged glances, hesitating. Realizing that crossing Henry Grant would be foolish, they finally let go of Maria, muttered a curse, and slunk away. Maria collapsed to her knees, gasping for breath. Henry immediately knelt beside her, his hand trembling but warm as it steadied her. "Are you okay? Did they hurt you?" Tears streamed down her cheeks. She shook her head, but clung to Henry tightly, as if he were the only safe place left in this dark world. "Henry, I was so scared," she whispered, her voice broken. He held her close, his embrace strong and unyielding, murmuring by her ear. "Don't be afraid. I'm here. Whatever happens, I won't let anyone hurt you." For the first time in days of avoidance, Maria no longer resisted. She let her heart ache and soften in Henry's arms, the arms of the man she had tried to push away, yet could never truly leave. After that terrifying night, Maria no longer avoided Henry. She realized that no matter how hard she tried to run away, her heart always found its way back to him. Each time she remembered the moment he rushed to protect her, the unwavering gaze, the firm embrace, she felt both trembling and safe. In the days that followed, Henry often came to pick her up after work. Sometimes they simply walked a few blocks together. Other times he took her to the hospital to visit her mother. They didn't speak much, but every glance, every touch of their hands was enough to fill the emptiness in both their hearts. Maria began to allow herself to believe in this love. But outside, the storm of public opinion only grew stronger. A major newspaper splashed the headline, "Young Billionaire Henry Grant, Infatuated with Waitress, a Fairy Tale Romance or PR Stunt." On social media, photos of Henry escorting Maria out of the diner spread everywhere. Some expressed sympathy, while others sneered. "She's obviously just using him. Henry could choose anyone. Why pick such a lowly girl?" A real-life Cinderella story. But how will it end? Maria sat silently in front of her phone screen, hands trembling. Every comment felt like a knife cutting into her heart. That evening, Henry arrived. He saw her sitting alone in the closed diner, eyes red from crying. Gently, he pulled out a chair and sat across from her. "They've been talking again, haven't they?" Maria gave a small nod, not daring to lift her head. I don't want you to be ridiculed because of me." Henry reached out, touching her fingers with his. His voice was firm. "I don't care what they say. The only thing I care about is you." "Maria, look at me." Slowly, she raised her head. His eyes shone deep, unwavering, sincere. "I love you. Not because you're beautiful, not because you're special in the world's eyes. I love you because you are you, the girl who gave the little she had to a stranger. I will not let public opinion decide our love." Tears rolled down Maria's cheeks, but this time, not from fear, from emotion. She whispered softly, "Henry, I love you too, but I'm so afraid. What if one day you regret it?" He held her hand tighter, smiling with certainty. "The only thing I regret is not telling you sooner." In that moment, Maria felt her heart finally set free. The storm of public opinion still raged outside, but in Henry's arms, she knew she was no longer alone. A month after the incident, Henry decided to attend a major financial event, one that gathered hundreds of journalists and business leaders. Maria had never imagined herself in such a glamorous setting, but Henry held her hand tightly, resolute. "I don't want to hide anymore. If I love you, then the whole world should know." Maria trembled. She wore a deep blue dress Henry had specially tailored for her, simple yet elegant. As they stepped out of the car, flashes lit up the night. Hundreds of eyes turned their way. Whispers and scrutinizing stares closed in from every side. Henry walked straight ahead, his arm wrapped around Maria, eyes locked on the cameras. "This is Maria, the woman I love." His words echoed like thunder through the hall. Reporters immediately rushed forward, microphones shoved in their faces. "Henry, are you serious? Do you intend to marry her? Maria, do you think you deserve him?" Maria froze, speechless. But Henry tightened his grip on her hand, whispering, "Don't be afraid, I'm here." Turning back to the press, his gaze was calm, yet unyielding. "I love her, and I don't need to prove anything more. Worthy or not, only the heart has the right to decide." The entire hall fell into stunned silence. Camera shutters still clicked furiously, but Maria suddenly felt lighter. In that moment, she knew Henry had chosen her openly, decisively, no matter what the world thought. But not everyone was pleased. That very night, Evelyn Henry's mother called him. Her voice was cold, sharp through the phone. "You've truly lost your mind, Henry. Announcing to the world about a waitress. Do you know the company's stock is dropping? Partners are doubtful, and our family has become a laughingstock." Henry closed his eyes, forcing his voice steady. "I don't care about stocks or ridicule. The only thing I care about is Maria." On the other end, an angry breath hissed through. "If you insist on being stubborn, don't blame the family for turning its back on you." The call ended in silence. Henry gripped his phone tightly, his heart heavy. He knew the real battle had just begun. Meanwhile, Maria stood outside the room, catching fragments of Evelyn's voice. Unease stirred within her again. Yet when Henry emerged smiling, as he took her hand, Maria knew one thing for certain. He had chosen her against all odds. A week after the public revelation, the atmosphere in Henry's family mansion grew more tense than ever. Evelyn still refused to accept Maria, while the other family members whispered behind closed doors, scheming to plant doubt in Henry's mind. One afternoon, while Maria was helping her mother with medication at home, Henry received a mysterious call. "Henry Grant, if you don't want to lose everything, end your relationship with that girl immediately. We have ways to make sure she disappears from your life forever." Henry narrowed his eyes, his voice calm, but edged with steel. "Who is this?" The line went dead. He gripped the phone, his gaze blazing. Maria, standing nearby, saw the anger and worry in his eyes, but didn't yet understand what had happened. That evening, Henry took Maria to a small cafe, the place where they had first met. Resting his hand on the table, he looked straight into her eyes. "Maria, you need to know, behind all the glamour, there are people who don't want us together. They'll do everything they can to tear us apart. Are you ready to face that?" Maria lowered her head, her voice trembling, but resolute. I'm scared, but if you need me, I won't run away." Henry clasped her hand tightly. "I don't need you to run. I need you to stand beside me, the way you always have from the very beginning. Do you understand?" Maria nodded, her eyes glistening with tears. In that moment, she realized something. This love wasn't just about happiness, it was also a trial. And if she wanted to protect Henry, she had to be stronger than ever. The next day, the scheme began to unfold. A malicious reporter showed up at the diner, asking bluntly, "We've heard Maria deliberately approached Henry to exploit him. Can you confirm this?" Maria froze, her heart racing, everyone's eyes fixed on her. She knew that if she didn't respond well, everything could collapse. But just then, Henry stepped forward, pulling her hand into his. His voice rang out over the crowd. "Maria never used me. She's just a good woman whose heart saved me when I thought I'd lost everything. Believe the lies if you want. I don't need anyone's approval to know she's the one I love." The crowd fell silent. Maria looked at Henry, warmth and protection flooding her heart. She knew that no matter how strong her family's schemes or public opinion grew, Henry would always stand by her. That night, as they sat by the river, just like in the early days, Maria rested her head on Henry's shoulder and whispered, "I know there's no turning back now, but I'm not afraid anymore, because you're with me." Henry wrapped his arms around her, smiling, "And I'll never let you face anything alone. We'll get through it all together." In that moment, Maria felt stronger than ever. Their love was no longer just sweet. It was an unshakable alliance, powerful enough to stand against the entire world. After the stormy days, Henry and Maria decided not to stay silent any longer. They organized a press conference at the company headquarters, where Henry personally faced every rumor and wave of public opinion. "People can doubt us, gossip all they want, but the only thing I wish to say is this: I chose Maria for her heart, not for gain or fame," Henry declared firmly, his gaze never leaving Maria. Standing by his side, her hand in his, Maria felt Henry's strength radiating through her. When all the lights and cameras turned on her instead of fear, she smiled. "I'm not a perfect girl, but I am sincere. And this love, it's what helps me become a better version of myself." That message rang out powerfully, spreading across social media and newspapers. People began to look at them differently, not just as a love story crossing social classes, but as proof of sincerity and a love strong enough to rise above public judgment. During this time, Henry and Maria also began planning the charity projects they had always dreamed of. With her own experience in helping the poor, Maria became the director of a foundation supporting orphans and struggling workers. Henry used his resources and connections to make the foundation effective. The couple often traveled to disadvantaged areas, personally distributing aid, helping build homes, and giving those less fortunate a renewed faith in life. Every time Maria saw a child smile, she felt deeply that it was love and compassion that had bound her and Henry's lives together. One weekend afternoon, as they stood on the rooftop of the Charity Foundation building, watching the city glow beneath the sunset, Henry turned to Maria, holding her hand tightly. "Do you see? Every hardship we went through has now become our strength, and I'm happy because I have you by my side." Maria leaned against his shoulder, smiling. "I feel the same, Henry. We're no longer afraid of public opinion or challenges. As long as I have you, I can walk anywhere." Henry held her tighter and whispered, "This is only the beginning. Our future, we'll write it together." In that moment, the city lights below shimmered like reflections of happiness and hope from two hearts that had weathered the storm and stood firm together. Their love was no longer just a personal story, but a living testament that sincerity and determination can overcome the entire world. A year after all the storms and challenges, Henry and Maria stood at the altar, surrounded by friends, family, and the lives they had once helped. No more doubtful glances or whispered gossip, only genuine smiles, joy and love filling the air. Maria wore a simple yet elegant wedding dress, her eyes sparkling with happiness. Henry held her hand, his face glowing with pride and joy. As Maria approached, he extended his hand with a tender but steadfast gaze. "Maria, you are the one I love, the one who has walked with me through everything. Let me continue this journey with you for the rest of our lives." Maria smiled, her voice trembling yet resolute. "I will always be by your side, Henry, in happiness, in trials, in every moment of this life." The wedding was warm and modest, yet filled with moving moments. The children, supported by their charity, laughed brightly, creating an atmosphere overflowing with hope and humanity. After the wedding, Henry and Maria continued to grow their foundation, expanding projects to help orphans, struggling workers, and impoverished families. Maria was no longer the little waitress she once was, but now the director of a compassionate organization carrying the same tender heart she had once used to care for Henry when he was pretending to be poor. Henry remained steadfast and protective of Maria, but now he was not just the man behind her. He stood beside her, building good things for the world together. One evening, as they sat on the terrace of their villa, gazing at the city lights shimmering in the night, Henry closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and whispered, "I once thought money could buy everything, but now I know the most precious things are love and kindness, and I am happy because I have you by my side to share it all." Maria rested her head on his shoulder, her smile radiant with joy. "I feel the same, Henry. We've endured storms, judgments, and trials, and now we are truly free to live for each other and for what is good." Hand in hand, they looked toward the horizon, where the sunset blended with the city lights, reflecting their enduring happiness. They knew that life would bring more challenges, but with resolute hearts and sincere love, they would overcome everything together, building a world full of warmth and hope. And from that day on, the story of the poor waitress and the young billionaire was no longer just a love story. It became a living testament to kindness, perseverance, and the power of love to overcome all barriers.